Mr. Himes of Connecticut for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Chairman Powell. Thank you for your careful conduct of monetary policy, independent of the many political desires that circulate in this building. Independent monetary policy is a bedrock of a solid economy. I want to reflect for a moment on another bedrock of the American economy, the full faith and credit of the United States government, which is now being put at risk by the Republican majority. My Republican friends know how very dangerous a game they are playing. They know that salary payments to our soldiers are at risk. They know that their irresponsibility will raise mortgage rates for new home buyers. But they say this is the only time we focus on spending in the debt, which of course is baloney. It's a pernicious form of baloney. The time to focus on the deficit is when you are voting for the spending and the tax cuts that create the deficit. When you're voting for the Trump tax cuts, which the CBO said would add $2 trillion to the national debt, that's the moment to consider whether you want to do that. Not when the good name of the United States is hanging in the balance. This stuff gets a little complicated, but the American people really need to understand what's happening here. The Congress sits down to a huge 10-course meal of tax cuts and spending and more defense spending and expansion of this program and stimulus, all of which we vote for collectively. First course, second course, white wine, red wine, 4 servings of dessert. And then the bill comes and my Republicans say, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, look at this bill. This is irresponsible. Do we really want to pay this bill? That's not the moment for the consideration. The moment is when you're ordering 4 helpings of dessert. That's when we should be talking about it and taking responsibility for the choices that we make without putting the full faith and credit of the United States at risk. Now here's where the hypocrisy comes in. My Republican friends like to point the finger at this side of the aisle and blame us. But Chairman, as you know, fully 1/4, 25% of today's United States debt was accrued in the 4 years of the Trump administration. This country's been around for 246 years, and fully 1/4 of the United States debt was accrued under President Trump. By the way, speaking of hypocrisy, in the 4 years of President Trump, the debt ceiling was raised or suspended 3 times. I didn't even notice. But now, of course, we have a different president, and so the calculus is different. Now, Mr. Chairman, I don't think I'm going to persuade the majority to act responsibly here. I actually think the markets will persuade them. And you'll recall, because we were watching this closely, September 29th, 2008, the Republican House of Representatives voted down the Great Recession Rescue Package. As the vote was going down in the House of Representatives, the equity market dropped 7%. $1.2 trillion lost in people's retirement accounts. Now, Congress sobered up. A couple days later, we passed the Rescue Act. So, Mr. Chairman, there is a question here, and the question is this. You and I both watch the markets pretty closely. Treasury tells us that on June 5th, that's just 3 months away, on June 5th, the Treasury runs out of money. So my question to you, Mr. Chairman, I know I'm asking you to be a little speculative here, but what should we watch for? What market signals could indicate that the markets are getting fed up with the manifest irresponsibility around this? Give us some things that we should be looking for.
And I'd love to, but I'm going to limit myself to what other Fed chairs have said about the debt ceiling, which is that it does need to be raised by Congress in the end. There are no rabbits in hats, as I mentioned, and also that no one should assume that we, the Fed, this is the Fed's business, is to protect the economy from various events. And you know, I wouldn't assume, no one should assume that we have the tools to protect the highly uncertain effects of that kind of an event.
So monetary policy is obviously very concerned with interest rates. If global capital markets begin to decide that we're really serious about hurting ourselves this time, is it possible that we could see interest rates rise more because borrowers of United States debt decide that we're actually a little risky? Is that possible?
I think that and many other things are possible. The thing is, we've never crossed that line, and if we cross that line, we're going to find out, and I think it's highly uncertain.
Okay, so that's possible, and you know I don't like pressing you on these things, but you said this and many other things are possible. You want to elaborate on what might be in the category of many other things?
Rather not, actually.
Okay, I figured. All right, thank you, Mr. Powell, again. I really thank you for your really responsible conduct of monetary policy. And there's a reason that you are insulated from our political desires, and I very much appreciate that and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. We'll now recognize the chair of the